Hi, Ranjit. Welcome to the show. This is Ramanuj this side. Can you hear me? Am I audible, Ranjit?
You're audible, but I think your video is slightly stuck.
Video is stuck. Yeah, for a moment your video was stuck as well. But is it okay
It's
now?
better. It's better now.
Yeah. Let's get started. So this is Ramanuj Mukherjee from LawSikho, and I have with me Ranjit, who has been running a very successful law firm about which he will tell us now. But before that, let me introduce you the topic also. We are going to talk about how to start a law firm from scratch and take it to a certain level where you are proud of it, right? So every in a way, I think everybody has dreamt about this. When we are young and in law school, we think that I'm going to work from a big law firm I'll work for some successful lawyers, but one day I'm going to start my own practice or my own law firm, and I'm going to get very rich maybe. Or also people dream about success in terms of professional recognition, success, acting on headlining deals, fantastic stuff, right? So now we are going to hear from Ranjit about his experience. So Ranjit, when did you graduate and from where? Can you tell us a little about your background to start with?
So I was in ILS Law College, as has been discussed before, Pune.
Okay.
I graduated in 2012. Uh, After that, we started the law firm in 2012 itself. We started in the name of ARP Associates.
Right.
There were three partners, so we went by the general Western trend of putting names by your surnames.
Right.
Right. So we wanted to be the next Clyde or something like that.
Awesome.
I think that
That's
was
the
the whole.
exciting phase, right?
Yeah, that's the whole. I mean, it's all about hope at that point. It's all about I can do
That's
this.
really fun part of the journey, right?
Right. So we started out in 2012 itself. My partners were at that point two partners. Both were my batchmates. I was graced with really good partners at that point.
Awesome.
Uh, One of them was working in a major M&A firm, and the other was in a government job, also placed through college. And I also had a job in Pune with a real estate company. Uh, but at that point, we decided to take a shot at this, and we started off with ARP Associates,
Okay.
which is now it's the same firm. It's just known as Ojas Legal. There was a name change.
Now it is known as Ojas. Earlier it was known as ARP.
ARP.
So
Yeah.
why did you change the name? If that makes me curious.
See, we were working under a very huge burden of being too young, right? So when we started working with bigger lawyers, senior lawyers, we started briefing them about our associations, and is nobody would want to associate us with us at that point if our name was not that big. There's nothing to be gained out of naming your firm with your surname if there's nothing with the name, right? So we decided to make it
Right.
a
Right.
generic umbrella name where nobody feels uh, no problem with using someone else's name. So that was the whole idea behind the branding change.
Okay. So basically, you're talking about like if you have to bring in new lawyers or partners to work in your firm, then it is much easier to name it Ojas than your than after your own names. Is that what you're saying, or are you saying it affects the outlook of clients as well?
Absolutely. So let's assume there's a lawyer with a 10 years of experience, right? And I
Okay.
asked them to work with us. We had good work, but we needed more people to work with us. And at that point, it's unfair to expect them to work under our name when we are about 15.
Hello. Yeah, can you repeat that? I couldn't understand what is the last thing you said.
I think I'm losing you there, Raman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Now.
Yeah, much better now. Okay, perfect. Great. So there was some internet connection issue, so I decided to change the internet connections and see how it works. I
No
hope it is
problem.
working better now.
Yeah, much better. I can hear you
Much
clearly.
better.
Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Great. So Ranjit, so that's quite an interesting learning from a young law firm trying to grow bigger and survive the initial challenges. Uh, that I think that's a nice first anecdote that you shared with us. Can you tell us how did you get the confidence of starting this firm? Like when did you felt when did you feel that, oh yeah, this is the right time, we can now go and hang out our banner and start a law firm in our own name, when most people are just worried about getting it's probably within 1 year of graduating what you're talking about, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So within 1 year of graduating you decided to go and start your own law firm, and this is in which city? This is in Pune, right?
Pune.
Yeah, so in a city like Pune, you decided to start your own law firm. This is really
Right.
unusual. And what gave you the confidence, and why did you feel that this is the right thing to do rather than going and working with some bigger law firms for a while, earning your name in the legal marketplace, and then starting maybe?
Right. So I think it came from a lot of factors about the decision came from a lot of factors.
Okay,
Uh, One, I think the foremost factor was that we knew we could actually do some good work. We were, in fact, very willing to learn on the job.
right.
Uh, uh, and my partners also, see, it happens, right? You're not really cut out for the corporate job line, answering to someone or those sort of things. It's the hubris of youth, if I may say. So
Yeah,
that is what made us actually think of this. Once we started thinking about this, we did some market research. We had our pluses, if I may say so, uh, in deciding a city like Pune. Pune is somewhere where I've been based out of Pune. My family's been here for a long time. We were very comfortable with the city because we also took education here, all partners. So we were pretty comfortable. And all said and done, very honestly speaking, Pune is a very good market. We always knew this. It's a very visible factor, though it is not considered by the tier one law firms to be a market. Uh, but it's absolutely a very good market. Like we currently also we work with a lot of tier one law firms doing their back end stuff, which is based out of Pune. So we realized that there was actually a market here,
right.
and uh, I mean, just to give you an idea of how we went ahead with this, even after I started the firm, we actually did go to senior lawyers for a month or two to learn what they were doing. The learning
Right.
curve did not stop there. The learning curve does not stop even today. Like the fact that I'm sitting here and talking to you, it's not that I've found a formula to success, right? I'm still
Yeah,
very much on the way to determine whether I'm doing the right thing.
absolutely. We are still all on the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm still figuring out what are the right things to do. So that was it. And Pune, I mean, the city is really something. It has been good to us, very honestly speaking.
Yeah, I can imagine. Like I think Pune had a some sort of a renaissance in the last. I think it started about 15 years back, and I
Right.
hope it's still continuing. But there was like a boom years in Pune, I believe.
I
So I
think
think
it's still
your
on.
timing was also critical. Yeah, you said something. Sorry, I missed
I
it.
said the boom is still on, is what I feel.
Okay,
We see newer businesses, newer verticals opening up every day. It's just opportunities available for everyone who's willing to do the work.
right, right. So tell me something. How did you? You said you learned on the job. So
Right.
what was? How was that? How does it look like? I mean, how was it possible? And what sort of work and clients did you start with, and how do you see that changing over time?
To be very honest, our first case, our first client was actually a divorce case, and
Wow.
we did not know anything about it except what we have read, what we've been taught. Uh, we did actually good because we did get a favorable order for our uh, client, and it's long back. But what essentially we started out with was very small work. I had to, let's say, if anything could come up, bails or registration work, conveyancing work, those sort of things. Uh, what it entailed was that I had to go to one of the seniors who would know this work, who were doing this work, to learn it with them. Initially, obviously, fees and all those things are not of a concern, right? You need to learn the work. We basically, the whole idea was to bypass the whole learning curve because there were multiple people here. We could do multiple things at the same time. We had to actually become somewhat of risk takers because there was always a high possibility of error, which I won't say there have not been. There have always been errors. But we did good. We learned on the job. We found our niches. We understood what were our strengths. And then we started moving along those lines. Now we stick to our areas of expertise.
So what are these areas of expertise and how did you develop them?
I actually already regret saying expertise because that's too early to say. But
That's very
if I may
humble.
say so, we did really well with very day-to-day corporate troubleshooting. What we mean by that is we get very involved with businesses, local corporate businesses in Pune, and we help them do the day-to-day operations. We had to go out of the way and expand the scope of our services and do more than what tier one or tier two law firm would do, because there was only that way we could get onboarded, right? Nobody was going to trust us at that point that we could actually deliver. So, which is why this was corporate troubleshooting became an area. Real estate was always our strong suit. Plus, real estate is a very good market in Pune, always has been. So that was an area. We later on developed a few more verticals like litigation. We actually do quite a bit of a area in areas of litigation. So we did that
So
as well.
so if you don't mind telling me like how many lawyers do you have in your organization?
So I mean, if I am to say the Pune and Delhi teams together, they amount to almost 18 to 20 people today.
Right. Okay. So
So
and
that's the
how did you manage to like how did you start hiring people? What kind of people do you hire? And how important is the right kind of hiring to building your law firm? Especially the first
so.
few hires, I believe, are very important. So how did you find the right people initially?
See, what happened with us was nobody actually wanted to work with us. Let's start with that. In
That's how
the
it is. Even when we started IPCDers, it was quite the same story. Even if we had money to pay in the bank, people
right.
were not willing to like take chance on a three
Yeah,
people
so
company.
exactly the same thing. Like I'll be very honest. What happened in our first year? It's a very interesting thing to tell you. I don't think many people know about it. So we started off in a very huge office. Uh,
Okay.
we took up a very big space, thinking we'll do good and all that. Day one, we started sitting there, all three partners, and about too late, 8 9 months later, we realized that we have squandered all the capital that we put in just on the rent, and we have not earned a single penny in fees. So then we shifted to a much smaller space, which was about 150 square feet. Not the best of the localities in Pune. And as you would imagine, it gets difficult to make people work with you when you have such spaces, right? 150 square feet space where both the partners are sitting, the toilet is right there, and the associates have the place to sit right there, and we call ourselves a firm. So it
Yeah.
got very difficult at that stage. Uh, but very honestly, along the way, we found people who believed in the madness. There were people who actually felt maybe it came from working with us for a few days.
Right.
The passion you cannot hide passion, right? And we really wanted to do well. We really had a bigger vision, and at that point, all we had was the faith in the vision. And we found people along the way who believed in us. Very honestly speaking, being from ILS, which is located right here, we also found a lot of ILS people maybe my juniors, people from my batch who are willing to work with us.
Right. I think that I think is a big support, isn't it? Like when you have a lot of alumni support, a lot of juniors who are willing to, come
In
with you,
fact, that was
come.
one of the bigger factors why we decided to be here. Even today, we maintain our association with ILS. Uh, about 50% of our interns every year come from ILS,
Wow.
and it's a big strength from the college, because the college also supported us. I would very much like to say the faculty there. My father was in fact a faculty at ILS long back, so the faculty there was very helpful in stages when we found it difficult.
Can you tell us more about that? How did ILS and the faculty members of ILS supported in your legal journey? That's a very interesting thing that
That's
I
a very
think.
interesting thing. So what happens is, it's a very understood thing that the faculty will always be rich in domain knowledge, right?
Yes. Yes.
It helps going. So, for example, I'll tell you, Mrs. Bhadbade, Smita Bhadbade, she was our faculty. She's the one who's written and curated the latest Mulla on contracts. Having someone like that very willing to assist us in our early days, it becomes very easy, because you don't have the thought maturity of interpreting the nuances of a contract from the strictest point of view of law. It's a very clear admission that we didn't know it at that point. Such people actually assisted us. Our faculty actually were very forthcoming. They also assisted us by giving us teaching positions in diploma courses, which I think you know this. My partner Arpit Ratan actually used to take lectures at in the initial.
Yeah.
He even
Yeah.
took a few lectures with I pleaders itself. So
Yes.
these things actually it helps. Even later in later stages during recruitments, the college always helped us out with recruitments. We were not a big firm. We could not afford a bigger package like the firms that actually come to ILS. But the college actually helped us in uh, presenting our vision to the students. So that helped a lot.
Yeah. I think that's a very important support that you got from your alma mater, and I hope that other law colleges and law universities begin to provide this kind of a support. I think this is an excellent example of how they have helped you, and you are now giving back to the institution by
Absolutely.
recruiting people, by bringing internships on board, and also I'm sure at some level the faculty members and the institute itself will be proud of the achievements that you have you are gaining as alumni. This is really something to be I think this is an excellent example. Very happy to hear this. And so Ranjit, uh, you know how did you actually decide to choose the areas that you decided to go for? Like you said, you do a lot of corporate
Right.
corporate governance. So how did you decide to choose those areas? Like you said, you do a lot of corporate governance. So how did you decide to
Hello, Ramanuj. I think I lost you there. Hello.
Hi, I'm back. I think you
Yeah,
can see me now. You can hear me. Okay, great.
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Perfect. So, you know, before I lost you, I was asking you that, how did you find your niche? I know, and I was saying that many lawyers really struggle to
Right.
find, what area they are going to work on. And I think you sorted out that problem early in your career and early in your journey. So, if you can tell us, how did you decide and what, influenced your decision?
See, it was a very simple case of doing what you could do best and what came your way. So we at a much later stage realized that basically what we were doing is a SWOT analysis. Strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, right? We didn't know it was called that fancy name earlier, but we were essentially doing that. We avoided a false pitch to clients that we can do everything. We stayed away from areas that we really did not understand. We absolutely avoided a oversell. We stuck to areas that we could actually do, we could actually understand. There were certain areas that already interested us. We wanted to go in that area. Plus, it's always about the vision. The bigger vision that we always had was someday going toe to toe with the big names. And you obviously have to work in the areas where they are working if you want to go there, right? So we did a lot of things, other things along the way which we don't do anymore. Like I said, family cases, for example. Like we do have a division which does that, but none of the partners anymore get involved with it directly.
Right.
But yeah, so along the way we realized what's paying more, very honestly, what's easier for us to be done, and what was the easier market in Pune.
Got it. So, I know okay, but when did you decide? Like, say, for example, we are going to do corporate, general corporate work. I mean, why not?
General corporate was
Why
always
not do venture capital? Why not do something? There's so many new things coming up in the market. So, don't you
right.
like want to jump into new bandwagons and try new things? So how
See,
do you decide the boundaries?
I'll put it this way. Let's take your case. What you guys have done. You guys did very beautifully in legal tech. We always were very interested in seeing what you guys are doing, what Ramanuj is doing, what Abhyudaya is up to. Because it was always very interesting to see the legal tech development. So let's consider it from that point of view that we tried to bring that to the profession. Some sort of innovation. We tried to get into those services where we could actually bring some change into the service, not go by the regular trodden path where it's the same service. You call the person, you meet him in court, you represent them in court. We try to do things differently. Now that is something that decided what we want to do. Plus, things like general corporate and all were always a mandate, right? You cannot call yourself a corporate advisory unless you actually do general corporate. So that was something we knew we had to do. Arpit essentially had a great experience in corporate, having worked with Vash Law earlier. So he had
Hmm.
a good M&A experience. He brought that on into the office. He also brought a very good office culture. So along with that, I was always very interested in real estate. I had worked in real estate earlier, so that area was again very fixed for us. And along the way, we also like litigation will always be incidental and essential for a lawyer, right? Even if I'm not doing litigation, I cannot tell my corporate clients to go to somebody else for litigation. So we developed that niche in house. We partnered with a lot of good people. We had the good fortune of actually working with the best in the profession. And like in Pune itself, we worked with one of the best chambers, SRB jurist, Suresh Chandra Bhosle. He's one of the oldest lawyers in Pune. He's the bar council president twice and all that. So we got to brief such people. We worked with them very closely, and it's a on-the-job learning experience. I would always call such things internships. Like I would actually tell at office, I'm going for my internship after having started the firm. That was one of our very important things.
I think that's a very great advice. But one big question that everybody has on their mind when they start a new practice, and
Right.
that question is, how do I find my first few clients? enough clients to pay the rent and cover the first associate salary, and enough to run the house at back at home. So what did you say, like when somebody starts a law firm, how soon they should, I think they need to pretty soon start earning some money
Yeah,
to
yeah,
keep the
absolutely.
flame alive.
Absolutely.
So what would you say is like something to aim for, and how do you find those initial clients, if you can throw
See,
some light?
to answer that question, I'll give you a brief background about myself. So I worked for about 6 years in sales and marketing before I started the firm. I did a lot of jobs there, very niche jobs in sales and
Wow,
marketing.
that's
And
really
I was in
interesting.
law.
6 7 years of sales and marketing. If you bring that experience to a law
School.
practice, I think it's really awesome. Yeah.
So that is where we actually did well. I mean, I understand we work. There are certain boundaries that have been put on us by our professional code. We never cross those boundaries, but you can always bring those ethics of services, right? What
Mhm.
lacks in this profession today is the ethics of service, the ethic of providing an integrity towards the service that you're providing. We did that. We made certain changes. It's adding a feel good factor to the clients. So we brought all of those learnings from multiple sources. We tried to bring it here. We It's a more entrepreneurial approach towards the running of a practice. It's more of that. It's more of putting the grunt work in actually securing some clients in the area which you can actually provide service in, till the point you can survive. Survival was our biggest aim in the first 3 years. Survival is the only thing. So we knew we could survive because there were certain services that we could actually provide on our own. So my sole focus in the initial years was towards, if I may say, business development in those areas. We established some clients in those areas where our services were really good, and that was our sustenance for the first few years. Now, you
So if I say that I come to you for advice, I'm starting a new law firm, and
right,
I have three partners and we have one associate. Okay,
right.
and we are starting something. What did you say? Like, what will be a realistic target for us for the first 3 months revenue? What should we go for? Realistic.
So, first 3 months, your realistic target is just surviving. If you can pull out the rent and the associate's salary, that should be it. I mean, I'll give you an example here. Since you mentioned associate salary,
Yeah.
for about almost till 2014, I think that's almost 2.5 years after we started. Us partners actually did not withdraw salary.
Okay.
We could not afford to withdraw salary. We needed the team. We actually see it comes from the smallest of things. We focused more on the things that are actually required to provide service, like having a clerk. It's a very small thing, but it's very essential. Our clerk was There was a situation at a point when we actually had an office boy, a clerk, an associate, and all of them actually got salaries every month, and the partners did not get salary. So the whole goal should be, see, look at it from a startup's perspective. We actually worked a lot in the startup area, so we tried to absorb and imbibe some of the tendencies in startups. Founders not taking salaries after funding and all that. There's a reason for that, right? So that was exactly how we did it. Uh, I would always say one thing that we learned when we were on the job is that you will have to set aside your ego when initially you're doing certain things. We did smallest of things, like actually extracting certified copies. One of the smallest things to do. Actually, most of the people have clerks to do that. We even did that as partners. We actually went and extracted certified copies if needed, because that brought in the money that was required to run the operations. Uh, and in initial stages, we actually did not go for the money. We went for money wherever it was easy enough to bring in some rent component, some salary component. But beyond that, if it was work that was actually going to provide some growth to our firm, like we did a lot of free work essentially in the earlier stage, just to show that we could do work. You have to audition. So once that was done, I think, it's all about staying very strong during the survival days, survival years, I will say.
I think that's a great answer that you have shared. Uh, so if I start a law practice or a law firm, how do you believe we should, price? Like how should you decide the what is what is your fee, and how do you do the pricing? Like should you charge hourly? Should you charge like one-time fees? How to decide these things? How do you take decisions in these matters?
So I'll tell you what we did instead of making it an advice. What happened was Pune wasn't that used to the concept of hourly billing in the earlier stage. Even today, it's not. Hourly billing actually becomes a very complicated situation to explain to a client. Why are you going to bill me for just thinking about my matter? Is a
Hmm.
very general question.
Yeah.
The adoption towards such a concept wasn't there, but we still tried to press it through. We priced it at the lowest possible. Uh, Honestly speaking, when we used to, I remember this in our early days when we used to pitch a, let's say, a retainer, a general corporate retainer to client. Uh, One of the baselines that we would have to use is that the retainer is as much as the salary that you will pay your front desk employee, because that is how low we charged actually, because it's about access to that job. Once you have access, once you have proven yourself, that is when you think about the fees. So more than anything else, I would suggest let the client decide the fees, except that you have your baseline, your MSP, your minimum selling point. You have that. Your MSP can be determined from your overheads, and once you have that, everything else is a bonus.
Okay, that's a very interesting way of running a law practice. Not everybody does that, but I think
It's bringing my
for
sales
an
and marketing
entrepreneur,
experience into it.
yeah, yeah. Tell me, you're saying something.
No, I was saying it's just my sales and marketing experience that makes me do such things, that makes me think like this.
Okay, but I think it's also a fantastic entrepreneurial way of doing things. Yeah, I mean, not everybody will like to do this, and I don't know of too many law firms which do honestly which have grown this way. But I think it's a very interesting take in terms of what one could do to grow
Right.
a law practice. So so if today, like I just want to understand, like let's say I'm looking for legal services, right?
Right.
How should I decide who to go to? Like I think pricing is a big factor. If I am not a big company, I'm, let's say, a an
Right.
individual person who's looking for some solution, or a small businessman who needs a service.
Right.
What's the benchmark for pricing? How do I decide? Like what would be your advice as a friend to me, that how should I look for lawyers and the pricing? How should
See,
I understand this price of legal services?
I think there are two factors that determine the pricing of a law firm. One is obviously the internal factor of how they value themselves and put a price on their services. And the second one is an external factor of how the market is and how the competition is. Uh, Today, given the entire evolution of internet and all those things, it's very easy to do a price discovery for a client. There are forums today which very easily provide you the pricing. What I have realized is it's at least for us what it was when a client came to us, how it looked exciting for us was not just the prospect of how much fee he is paying us, but it's also the prospect of growing with the client. So if you are a client, my suggestion to you would be to give a clearer picture, provide a picture to the lawyer about the growth prospect that he may have with you, right? Because that becomes a complete offset to the fee. The lawyer will actually do the cost return analysis on that and determine, okay, even if I charge lesser on this, if there is a better growth prospect with this client, I would go ahead with it. So that's more interesting for corporate clients.
Okay, very interesting. So, what's your take on, like on law firm marketing? How should a law firm go about promoting itself? Obviously, you do fantastic work. People hear about you, word of mouth publicity, all that is understood. But is there anything else that a law firm should be doing to get more clients?
See, the first rule in that would be stay within the boundaries of Advocates Act when you're marketing. That's the
Yes.
first rule. Beyond that, I think the restrictions of the profession make it more important that your marketing is through a softer touch towards it, building more associations, uh, having more student interaction, because these things work. I'll tell you a very interesting thing about our law firm when it comes to marketing. It's not exactly marketing, but it's something that gives us a good name in the market.
Brand building, of course.
Brand building, let's call it that. So we take a very deep interest in student learning. We have a slot of about 5 to 7 interns every month in the Pune office itself. The Delhi office also has 1 or 2 interns there. The Pune office actually has knowledge learning exercises in the office itself. We conduct our internal competitions like moots and client counseling, these sort of things. Uh, the purpose behind it is to actually give back to the profession, because we had really good seniors who helped us along the way. So we try to do that for the students. What happens with that is, see, it has to be understood. These students are not students, right? They are our colleagues in the profession within 2 years or 3 years. So you can't really treat them as students. I wouldn't have liked being treated as a student in the early days.
Yeah.
So that's one of the more important things. Lawyers in a senior stage, or how it has been traditionally, is we lose touch with students. We do not interact much with them. The teaching experience is just a tag along with the senior and see what you can grab along the way. We don't keep it like that. In fact, I'm very proud to say that we have a very strong interns base. I still keep in touch with all the interns. So does my partner. We still do a lot of knowledge exercises with them, and I'm very proud to say that these interns have now joined some of the tier 1 law firms. Now that's where you have struck golden chord with brand building, right? Because these people
Yes.
have become your peers. They actually think back of us when, if there is something about Pune that is coming up, or if there's something that they actually think we can do.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, Also with peers, your peers will always be your biggest strength. We were lucky enough to have a very good batch from ILS. Some of my batchmates have today actually reached partner positions in some of the bigger firms, and keeping in touch with them, being actually very well connected, actually helped.
Yeah.
So these are the softer touches of marketing or brand building, as we would call it.
Yeah, this is fantastic. I think both we also run a course on legal practice management. Okay,
Right.
and these are some of the things that we specifically recommend. That we say that internship is one of the most fantastic and wonderful ways of building your brand, because people who think fondly of you and have benefited from your guidance will obviously you know circle back later on and refer work back to you, and that way you can build like a pan-India network. If you have a fantastic internship program, you can have people coming from other cities and doing your work, and then they become great lawyers in 5 years time. Of course, it will take 5 years of time, but in that much time you have people referring you work from every corner of India. I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, we fully agree with you. I mean, this is something that we also cover in substantial detail. And similarly,
I
I
would
think people
say that
forget to make sure to tell their friends and their family members and their parents and their, classmates from school or college what they are doing now. Like, to be honest, if I look back, my batchmates from NUJ's 2011 batch,
right.
I don't think I know too many of them what they're doing.
Hmm.
They're doing great things. There are people who are, practicing criminal law in the US. There are people who are running law firms in Hyderabad. But it's only by chance when I am in the city and I meet them, I discover what they are doing. And then I realize that had I known that he has been doing this for the last 2 years, I would have been able to like help him a lot, because I had major clients to refer in that city and I couldn't
Absolutely.
find somebody maybe.
Absolutely. So we actually, that's why I said we are lucky. It's not just our batchmates. So ILS, in ILS, how it used to work is I'll be very proud in saying this that me and my partner, between the both of us, Arpit and I, we actually spanned almost 10 batches of ILS, 5 years before us, 5 years after us.
Right.
And we made sure we kept in touch with people. And it worked beautifully for us. Matlab, in the initial stage and even till date, a major chunk of work, major quantum of work actually comes from that circle.
Yeah,
And it's a tight
and it's so
circle.
simple, right? It's something that everybody has a batch in law college,
Right.
right? And everybody has school friends. Everybody has a family, and at least I think even family, like, we underestimate how much our family can help us simply if they know what you're doing. So there's
Absolutely.
another interesting story I'm going to tell you. There was this lawyer from GLC. She had started her practice, and she started writing on a blog. So I had requested her, why don't you write something? And she wrote the first blog post, second blog post, and then she started sharing naturally on her Facebook and Twitter. Facebook primarily, right?
Right.
Few days later, she called me up and said, I can't believe my neighbor, you know, today met
Right.
me in the lift and said that, oh, you practice cyber law. I have a case. I need to refer this to you. And I didn't know. Why didn't you tell us? And I'm like, this is, the most fantastic thing, that there are people who already know you, who
Right.
trust you, who like you. If they
Absolutely.
have something, they'll rather come to you than go to some unknown lawyer will, they don't even know if they're good or bad and what sort of people they are. Your own people do not know what you can do for them, right? So
Right.
I mean, that's, I think, a starting point. If you are going to practice as a lawyer, people, your own circle must know what you are good at.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you for reminding us about that wonderful point about how
See,
we
I
forget
tell
to
you,
tell people the closest to us about what we are doing. And usually that's
see,
a problem. People ask, what do you do? And like, oh, I do such a complicated thing, I can't explain.
yeah, it gets difficult, I believe.
Yeah. So, what are the biggest challenges you face when it comes to managing the firm? Like, what are your biggest, kind of learning areas, stumbling blocks which you are trying to overcome?
So the biggest area will always still be experience. That is where we always will find ourselves wanting more, right? Because we started out young, we are still young. All partners are under 30, and it becomes difficult for us to sometimes bring the maturity of thought that is required when it comes to core litigation, because I'll be very honest that it's something that cannot be bypassed. We did try to bypass the gestation period of the practice waiting, but when it comes to experience, you cannot really bypass it. You have to actually gain it. There has to be some graying on the sides till you actually come to that. So, but the easier way to resolve it is, I mean, associate with better people, associate with the more learned ones. Uh, we try to always keep, your ego aside, your hubris aside, and you establish a more cordial relationship with such people and gain the expertise, because that's always been our biggest problem, that we don't look experienced enough. It becomes difficult at that point. So that challenge has to be overcome by actually a show of knowledge or a show of integrity to the service. Apart from that, the biggest challenge we've always faced is finding people to work with us. That will always still remain our biggest challenge, because there will always be a better job out there, right? And on the face of it, this job with a startup law firm does not look that lucrative. So, very honestly speaking, I think in the last 1.5 years or 2 years, we've been paying the highest salaries in the city, or at least at par with the top firms in the city.
Yeah. And this is because it's so difficult to attract talent, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Talent will
So,
always. it's difficult to motivate people at this age, right? It becomes difficult.
So I have a question here. Like generally, what works in this scenario is that when you create a workspace, which is exciting, which is doing something special, which is something that you know that being a part of that place, you get to do something. You're like at the vanguard of things, right?
Right, right.
So when that is there, I think you attract talent. So how do you create that in your farm, that people get to know about you in the market, and they are excited that we want to work with this firm which is doing some fantastic work, because we want to be at the center of the action, right?
Right.
How do you do that for your firm?
So it always, I'll circle back to the entire ILS thing. What they did for us, the way ILS promoted us, the college, or my interns later on. We had some really good reviews from interns. Interns actually posted some blogs about us.
Yeah.
These things made people actually aware of the fact that uh, any person who works with us actually gets to work at the core of the work. Uh, uh, I mean, there have been initial days of my associates' employment here where they have directly been interacting with clients or actually working on the subject.
Yeah.
Plus, we keep it very level with the associates. The entire atmosphere in the office is of there being no senior in the office, right? There are other senior councils on board, but they are not at the core of the team. So the entire thing is about, even if I have an associate who's a, let's say, 2017 pass out, but the entire instinct behind working is that let's do this together. It's not I am instructing and you're going to do it. It's let's do this together. Let's figure out we have to do this. Right.
It's
So as you said,
that's I think really a fantastic way to engage your team. Yeah.
absolutely. So it has worked pretty decently for us in the last few years. We have a touchwood. We have a very good team here now. The core team is quite well developed. Uh, it's also, I will tell you very honestly, it's also about visibility into the business. By visibility, what I mean is, by default, this profession has a very innate instinct of hiding what the senior is doing. There is no visibility to the people who work with you. There is no visibility for them into the fees that you are charging, or into what sort of work you are doing, or what interactions you have with the client, or how you are doing this. How are you doing this? How are you actually getting clients at this age? We actually grant that visibility to even our interns. That is why we have those knowledge exercises where we actually put them in mock situations of handling clients, of real time scenarios, of real scenarios that the firm has faced. And very honestly, I'll tell you, from this, some of the best minds have come to us. And what we have seen is, once you provide them that motivator, uh, people who won't be considered as the best people by the industry have done wonderfully for us. These are what I call my dark horses. They have actually done wonderfully for us.
Okay, that's a really great thing that you're finding your dark horses, and
Right.
making them the champions. That's fantastic. So how do you ensure knowledge development and development of expertise within your firm? How do you decide how to develop it? Like, how do you train your people? How do you make sure that a certain practice expertise in a certain practice area is growing in your firm?
See, I'll tell you. Apart from the generic or general knowledge exercises that we have all seen or come across in other law firms or in the industry in general, which involve a lot of study and all. Apart from that, there is one very direct thing that we do is, uh, see, what we have believed is that the biggest motivator to learn is actually the necessity, because if you are removed from the client and his backlash of not having provided the work, you don't really have that inclination to learn. So what we do is we put the associates or the people who work with us in the same boat as us. If a client's backlash is coming to me, the backlash is shared by the associate. I put them in the situation
Hmm.
along with us, and this has been an immense motivator, because people actually, if you assign them as a POC, a point of contact to a particular client, they know that the client will call them out of the blue asking something, and
Yeah.
that sort of a situation is actually a very good motivator for them to learn. So at that point, then we do have really good knowledge exercises in the office. Let's say if, for example, if I am to say, it's a simple thing as labor compliances, right? Uh, your provident fund and employment, state insurance, those sort of compliances. You do need to advise your client on them. How do we understand them? So we had a session in the office with a actually a compliance consultant. He came to
Yeah.
the office. He comes regularly to the office, in fact, with amendments and all that. And we do hold sessions in the office with these external consultants for our internal staff to learn. And the best part of this is that since it's a new knowledge exercise where everybody needs to learn, the partners actually have to sit into these exercises. It's mandatory attendance for partners as well,
Fantastic.
because we have to learn these things.
I think you are doing a great job here in training your partners and your associates. So one last question I have is that, do you guys have a content strategy? Like, these days it's becoming imperative for law firms to, put out certain amount of content in the market so that people see them, people know them, and people get familiar with them, with their expertise. And it's a way to keep in touch with your existing clients.
Right,
Prospective clients can discover you, and also in a way that you keep in touch with people who are prospective clients and
right.
existing clients, sending them updates and all these things. So do you have a newsletter? How do you do this? How do you manage this
Uh,
part? Do
we
you have a strategy for
do
this?
have a newsletter which is very, very sporadic. It's not a very regular thing. But more than that, what we actually do is we are very much into the practice of conducting and holding workshops and seminars for clients and prospective clients. I myself am very much immersed in workshops for sexual harassment or workshops for labor issues. What we have seen from these workshops is that it is a more direct form of update to the client. We have workshops where we actually train employees of our clients or just general employees who are involved in contract drafting or contract negotiations. So
Yeah.
we have workshops for them for how to effectively negotiate a contract or the do's and don'ts basically.
Yeah.
We do send out regular email updates to the regular clients, but beyond that we try to go a step beyond this and hold these workshops, and we have seen these works work wonderfully. We do them year round, and it's a interesting thing to say, but we have now started going beyond our clients and to external uh, organizations who invite us for these workshops because they have
And
become quite popular.
yeah, wow, it's a very, very great strategy. I'm very happy to hear about this, and really thank you. I think we are closing
Yeah.
out, like we are towards closing time, and we have got tons of questions. I didn't bother you earlier because we're already having a very great discussion, and I didn't want to interrupt you, but there are so many questions. Just let me just quickly take a few of this. Sorry, but I don't know what is happening here. Mm. Just a moment. Yeah, so I can see some of the questions here. Okay, one question I have here is there are many people who are from ILS, and they are saying that you have come to our college, etc. They are very happy to see you here.
Right.
So one question I have received is, how exactly do you market research, and can you do market testing? I mean, these terms are very unusual for law firms, but
Right.
still, did you do any market research, or do you do any market research now?
Yeah, absolutely. Market research and price discovery, these things will always be core to a entrepreneurial attitude towards running a business, right?
Yeah.
In the end, we need to know what's out there in the market to poise ourselves perfectly. So, the best way to do a market research would be to tap into your network and gain knowledge. I've always found, like I said earlier, my batchmates have now become partners or principal associates in law firms. They're always a very good source of this information. Beyond that, if you are looking at market from the client side, there's a very deep study required into finding out what are the possible modalities in your area of working, finding out the right sources for clients, and doing the right thing, staying within the parameters of the profession to acquire those clients. So yes, we do.
Okay. So one more question we have got is that how do you do branding of the law firm when you start the law firm? Anirudh Tamde has asked.
Okay, how do I do branding? So, in the strictest sense of it, branding for our law firm would only, I would only speak about the logo that we have because that's the branding. Apart from that, the entire branding that comes is from soft touches like these. Uh, I would
Comes
very much.
primarily from what your clients say about the work you have done for them.
Absolutely. Plus, I would very much like to mention the traction that we got because of super lawyer or interviews in such spaces, because that is actually a very important thing, because I cannot put out a profile or I cannot advertise myself, and in those situations, I am very honestly saying this, but the interview with super lawyer, which I think I did in 2015,
Hmm.
that helped a lot. And similar situations, softer things like these workshops that we have conducted,
Right.
these have been the things
I
that
think
we've
that's
done.
a phenomenal way of you're educating people, and
Absolutely.
they remember you when they have trouble in that negotiation. They remember, yeah, Ranjit taught me this is
Right,
how to do. Better go back to him. He is the expert. So I think
right.
that's a fantastic, the best possible way to find new clients and impress the clients that you already have. I think
Absolutely.
that just hits the nail on the head.
Thank you.
So we have another question. How did you approach companies and get empaneled? Do you think we still need to address this question, or have we addressed it
I
already?
think we have addressed this sufficiently. I think
Sufficiently,
we
how
dealt with the
to.
baby steps that we had to take earlier.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And okay, rest of the questions are they're just chatting amongst themselves. So I think this
Right.
is it. We have, and we are perfectly on time. But before you leave, why don't you tell us how you found this experience of this exercise today, and like your honest feedback on the conversation, and what do you think? Like, do you think this will help the industry and the younger lawyers? The
I,
new.
I'll be very honest. Like I said earlier at the beginning of this, firstly, let me thank you guys with all my understanding of how this works, and from the firm as well, because this is a very great opportunity for us to put our experiences across.
Yes.
We don't get this platform much, and I really appreciate this opportunity. Uh, Beyond that, I'll be so putting across these things. It helps us in actually, how I said earlier, I don't know. I have not figured out the success formula. I don't know exactly what is the success matrix, the perfect unicorn approach towards these things to hit the nail. I'm still well along the way, but what it helps us in doing is to tell you what not to do. The
Right.
mistake that we have made in the initial stages or we are still making, it helps us in putting across those mistakes to people. That is why I think this was more of a confessional than anything else, where I actually told you where we went wrong, and I think it tells a lot about what not to do in the profession. There are mistakes we made in the initial stages, and I would really request people who are in the profession and who are getting into the profession to not make the mistakes. I think we are sufficiently accepting towards our own mistakes.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Great. So, with that note, and after especially noticing your extraordinary humility and your intelligence, thank you so much, Ranjit, and coming here. We hope to have you here again soon on
Absolutely.
our
You'll be
show,
welcome.
and maybe we'll talk about more interesting things and more law firm management and how to make a great law firm. Thank you so much,
Thank
and
you.
looking forward to connect with you again. And on that note, we sign off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ramanuj. Bye.